Amber.
Hey.
Jaria, are you there?
I am. Hold on a second. My video went out. There I am.
There you go. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome to Faithfully Committed Podcast. Thank you all so much. Today's topic is going to be talking about the school system, private school and public schools. So before we begin, let me introduce you. Jaria Carter is a high school teacher in public education. She is also my wonderful, awesome sister. And the next guest we have is Amber. She is a high school teacher in private school, and she also taught in public school and middle school, correct, Amber? Middle school?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, and that's my daughter. So we're going to begin. I guess I just done the introduction for y'all, huh?
Yeah.
But
Okay, well, we are going to move on. So let me ask you your first question. This question goes to both of you. Amber, you can answer first and then let Jared answer. What made you decide to go and be a teacher?
I didn't.
Okay.
It was something that kind of just fell in my lap. I was in the process of trying to become a physician assistant because I had got my degree in biology. And so I took a job at a hospital, being told that once I completed 1,000 patient care hours, that I would be able to get into the program at Howard. So I completed my 1,000 hours. And then once I completed that, I was told that Howard no longer had money to fund that department. And so they were no longer going to have it. So that kind of just left me in a position where I was just working at a hospital. And one day I went to a birthday dinner and someone told me that PG County Public Schools were hiring for teachers. And I took a chance. I went, and that day they hired me on the spot. And that's how I became a teacher.
That's very interesting. Okay, Jaria, thank you for joining us, Melinda.
You're welcome. My apologies. I have to have my camera off. I'm not camera ready right now.
That's fine. Okay, what about you, Jaria? What made you decide to go into this field?
I, like Amber, it was not something that I kind of chose. It kind of fell in my lap. I was working in the private industry doing signage, being a business consultant for a signage company. And I had a former neighbor who was like, you need to come over to Anacostia. They got, I think you should, try being a teacher. They have a position right now as a teacher's aide. Just try it out, see if you like it. And I was like, I don't know. Let me just see what's going on. So I went and, at first I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be here that long. But more and more that I stayed, I fell in love with the students at the school. And I've been there. This is my 8th year there. So I'm getting into the education field a little bit later. It was not what I chose. I think I was always going to be an artist in some way, form, or fashion. And now I am educating and cultivating artists. So I'm still in a teacher mode, not in the classroom as much as anymore. I've transitioned into being more of like a media assistant for the school. And so that position is still in education because the students have to come to me with their projects to get ready for presentations. We have transferred over into a, what is it called? They actually have to do presentations for each subject, each semester. So every project-based learning. So that's what the school has transitioned into as far as curriculum. No matter what subject that they have to present a project. So if it's a math, they have to do math, a math presentation. If it's reading or social studies, they each have to do a presentation. They come to me to do the research and to put the presentation together to present in front of the entire school.
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
It is a lot.
So Amber, what subjects do you teach?
Science. So right now I teach a life science, 2 biology classes, and a health class.
Wow. That's a lot too.
Yeah.
Okay, one of the questions I always wanted to know, is there a difference when it comes to what you call it back in the day? I think we call it parent and teacher conference, PTAs. That's what I'm trying to say. Is there a difference? Do parents show up for their kids at PTAs or they really don't?
So it really depends. Because I have taught in both public school and private school, I would say for public schools, not many parents show up. And it depends on their situation. Sometimes you have people who I've ran into parents who work overnight, so they can't make it to PTA meetings because they're at night while they have to go to work. So, and then you'd have some parents who, know their kid. I taught honors once where a lot of the kids, their parents knew that they were going to do what they're supposed to do. So if they knew they were going to do what they're supposed to do, they did not show up as much because they were great communicators throughout the school year. So they would make sure they would make sure they, showed up to the school if necessary. But as far as like one-on-one time, a lot of times I didn't do that if they were already, involved. And then you just have those kids where parents just don't show up for whatever reason. In private school, I would honestly say, surprisingly, it's about the same. I
Really?
do have, I'll probably say this year I have maybe 60 kids because in private school there is much less of a count than public schools. Public schools I'm teaching about 150 kids, but in this school I'm teaching 60, and I would probably say maybe 25 shows up.
That's very interesting. What about the parents? Is it difficult dealing with them when it comes to their children? If you don't have a good report to put out there, is it difficult?
Again, depends on the kid, right? So, if I've had students where they were very difficult and reaching out to their parents made me understand why they were difficult because the parents are just as difficult. But then you also have I just actually sent an email out last week to a parent about her child not doing the best in my class. And her response was very positive in trying to reinforce whatever I was trying to reinforce in the class. So I think it just depends on the type of kid and the type of parent. If the parent does not really want to be involved, you can tell that the kid does not really want to be involved. But if the parents are involved, then they'll give you support. But if not, then they just won't.
Is that the same for you, Jaria?
That's the same for me, but I also wanted you to introduce Dr. Melinda Tyler and let her jump into this conversation. Being a former principal and now going back into teaching, so she can also give you some insight on how she sees it from both angles.
I totally agree. Are you ready, Melinda?
So yes, thank you, Jaria, for bringing me in the conversation. I definitely agree with Amber on the involvement part. You have both extremes. Either they're really, really involved or they're not involved at all. And you also have parents, different breakdown in the home. You have the nuclear families, you have single moms, you have different dynamics that attribute to the fact of why they cannot attend the meeting. So as a principal, and won't say my county, but as a principal, we had incentives for parents to come out. So we would offer childcare, we would provide dinner, and try to make sure that we offset any of the barriers that kept them from coming. We also had virtual meetings. So when we started doing virtual meetings, the attendance did increase. And so the PTA president was very involved. She provided resources for families. And so you really had to learn your families to figure out what their needs were and to get them to come out. You have some parents that just don't want to be involved in school, and as they get older, the involvement decreases. But unfortunately, the involvement should increase as they get older, middle and high school. So you still need to go to those back to school nights. You still need to go to the PTA meetings. You still need to be involved because they need you just as more in the middle school ages and the high school age. But as a teacher, I actually went back into the classroom last year. My parents were very involved. And I had to create a relationship with them, like you said. I had to create a rapport. I had some who I heard from just by email, some who came to conferences. So I always say you got to get them 7 different ways, 7 different days. So whether it's an email, a text, a phone call, a smoke signal, a flyer, a post on the website, a flyer as they driving by leaving, a sign in front of the school, Jaree's taking a care, all of those.
You have to do all the above,
Yep.
all the above.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's not the only other option is that you don't do anything at all. And that's not an option.
Right.
So you cannot say, as Melinda was saying, you cannot just not do anything. You have to show that you reached out, whether it's a smoke signal, email. I know one of the problems that we have at our school is the students give false phone numbers to put in the system, which is very dangerous because if an emergency was to happen, you only can rely on the student's cell phone to call that parent. But it's the parents that are sometimes encouraging the kids to give the numbers because they don't want us contacting them. They don't want to hear us. Yeah, so they don't want to hear us calling, getting inundated with so many calls from the school. So they tell the students to give them one number, knowing that's not the real number. And I know we were getting a lot of pushback from the students from taking their cell phones. But when you realize that's their only connection, if something was to happen, that cell phone actually has the correct number for the student, for the parents. And so, it became like a little joke with me. I would be like, can I have, can you call your parent for me? Can you give me the real number? So can I give them this call? I mean, it's funny, but it's not funny. But once when it's no point in looking at the numbers in the system. You need to go to the child and actually get the number from them. At least on my end, that's how it is.
It's a little different for me. So when a parent has to register their child, and once you register them, you have to put in numbers. They not only want the primary caregiver's numbers, but they also want at least 3 emergency contact numbers.
And we have that too. We have that too.
From the jump. But again, when you got parents who don't want to be bothered, then it won't matter what they're putting on that paper. Also at my school, and I don't know if it's like this at Anacostia, but at my school also, when you go online and look up the numbers, it also has their addresses. So it gets to, even if you need to, if it gets bad enough where you got to start sending mail by pigeon,
Yeah. So we do like you said, the snail mail, email is very scarce here and there. But as Dr. Melinda Times said, smoke signals, whatever you need to do, a flyer, something, you have to get that information. A lot of times I'll roll up to parents at a game because the guards are a little bit down. You can kind of talk to them. They're not as like, nervous. I do think sometimes the parents of some of my high school students didn't have a really good experience in their high school. So that there's this kind of shyness, or there's this kind of like, they feel like they're being judged because they already know how their student is. And so a lot of times they're looking at us like, oh, you getting ready to come for me. And so it's not really that. It's, you have to kind of, I know we as some of the teachers and educators at our school, we have been leading family engagement activities at the school to just kind of know know the parents on a more casual basis. So we did a little line dancing before the games and stuff like that, so you can kind of know them that way. And just little things, little sipping paints, little things to just engage the parents just on a more casual basis. Not like, oh, let me talk to you about your student. No, let us, build a friendship first, and then I can talk to you later about your student. So there's a variety of ways that you can do it. Everyone is a little bit different, and it's amazing because we all live like in the same area somewhat, the DMV area. But as you can see, from private to public to even different counties, it's kind of like you have to kind of fall in where you can get it while you can get it type of thing, and you have to adjust, and you have to also meet the parents where they are.
So
that is true. So I have another question. Hold your thought for 1 second, Amber. I was about to say maybe Melinda. What's the difference between an high F and a low F? Because when I was in school, an F was an F, simply means you failed. So now when my daughter came along and she started going to school, oh, it's a high F. Oh, it's a low F.
Why would you believe? But okay.
Right. So the grading scale is specific to the county or the district. And they set the grading scale. So you may say an F is a range between 50% and below, right? And so if it's a high F, 50%, if it's a high F, it's on the high end. If it's a low F, it's on the low end. The other grading system that is now coming out, I don't know if you heard, standards-based grading. Schools are moving away from letter grades, and they're grading, or we wouldn't call it grading, but they are grading students on their progress towards meeting the standard. So you either have you're developing, you're meeting, or you're approaching the standard, as opposed to you have an A, you have a B, you have a C, you have a D. And so, like I said, it's dependent upon the school district, dependent upon the school. Private schools have a different grading scale as public schools. But many counties are moving away from the letter grades, because what they found is that when you look at a letter grade, you just know if my child is passing or not, my child has a straight A's or not. But when you look at standards-based grading, you can see what particular standard and how your child is progressing towards their standard. And so students are more in tune with how they're progressing versus I passed or I failed. But it does cause some controversy, because when you get to high school and you have to have your transcript, and colleges are looking for those grades, they're like, well, how does standards-based grading transfer into a transcript for college? But it's about the scale. So if you ask them, like, what is the scale? Can I see your grading scale? And if it's also, like, for example, you can have a high A or a low A. A low A would be, some people say A minus is 90% or 89%. And then a high A would be 99 or 100. So it's however the number rating is correlated to the letter grades.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So Amber, I have a question for you and Jaria. Do you both curb grades?
No, I don't. I don't curb grades. My reason is because, unfortunately, children once you start, children kind of rely on you doing that. So they will be at a place where they feel like whatever the highest grade is, you should curve that many points from whatever the lowest grade is. And I'm not doing that. So instead of curving grades, I may say, okay, we're gonna have a quiz. Like my students have a quiz tomorrow, everybody. So I'll tell them like, okay, you guys, we're gonna have a quiz on Monday, and I'm gonna allow it to be open notes, right? So that's a position where you have, as long as you took the notes in the class, you pass the test. You will pass the quiz. The quiz is only 10 questions. It's nothing deep. But what I'm trying to promote is good note-taking skills, because the issue is they don't understand that when they get to college, their professor is just going to talk. Nobody is going to be saying, let me see your work. Let me walk you through it. If you're struggling, they're going to tell you to go to the tutoring center. They're not going to sit there and take their time out to do it. So it's like, okay, when I was in school, I had teachers who literally would put on videos and tell us, for however the duration of the video was, take notes on the video, because you had to be mindful of what you heard to be able to write down. So what I do is I do the same thing in my classes, whether I was teaching middle school or high school. I did the same thing, and I say, okay, well, if you took great notes, you don't have any problem passing this quiz. Now, if you don't pass the quiz, that gives me a chance to put it on you. Well, where are your notes? Well, let me see what your notes look like, because that, in my opinion, I can say that we can all agree on this Zoom call today that if we got open note quizzes, we would all have A's. So with that being said, but we don't get that. I still get 50s and 60s from kids taking notes. So I feel like if I'm sitting here and I'm giving you the answer and you're still not doing your job, why do you want me to curve a grade? Do you want me to say that you got a grade that you did not deserve? So no.
That's very interesting. What about you, Taria?
So short answer, no, I do not curve grades. However, we have been instructed from our administration to no longer give zeros. We can no longer give zeros. We were we had to read a book called Grading for Equity, where they were saying how the school system and the grading system is a little antiquated, and it's harder for a student to come back from a 0 than it is a 50. So the lowest that we can give students is a 50. If they do not turn in their work, they get a WS, which is waiting for the assignment. Those WSs can also turn into 50s. My take on that, it is true. A 50 it's easier to come back from a 50 than it is a 0. Because no matter how hard a child works, that 0 really impacts the average, right? But if you have it as a 50, they can come back a little bit more from that. I believe it's just the bottom line. They're looking at leadership in general, is just looking at that number of who's promoting in your class, right? That 0 affects the entire class average. So when you start putting in grades and you have those zeros in, it's going to bring it down lower and lower and lower. But 50s, basically, to me, they pass the grade. It makes it look a little bit better than it does if it's a 0. So
they just give them some type of leeway.
I think you have to remember also when they used to do the No Child Left Behind Act, right? Where they were passing a lot of kids who weren't really on grade level with a lot of stuff, right? Because a lot of people want to blame it on the pandemic or the way these new teachers are, but it's really not the pandemic. These kids have been reading on 4th grade level for the past 10 years. This isn't something that just happened. So the issue is when a lot of people are saying these teachers are just passing the kids, right? It's because we're being told to, right? Because the 50s are allowing these children to still pass, right? Because you have to remember, in public school, a D is a passing grade. You don't have to retake the class or anything of that nature. So if I get a 50, I literally will have students that be like, oh, at least I know it's going to be a 50. Or they say, oh, good enough, because they know that's all they need to do. Now, once the pandemic happened, I particularly had a student, I cannot remember this child's name, but I had a student who failed me first quarter, who failed me second quarter. It was the middle of third quarter, right before the pandemic happened. And I had spoke to his mom regarding, that he couldn't read. He was in the 7th grade. This is when I working in PG County. This was, again, before the pandemic. I said, I recognize that he's talking into his phone to Siri or Alexa or whoever to get how to spell certain things. And I'm not talking about something that's extreme. I'm saying I could be asking them how to spell earth, being a science teacher, and he will talk into the phone to be able to get the correct spelling of earth, right? Called his mom, spoke to his mom about it. She told me, I told her, I said, listen, we're having a really hard time with him reading, but I noticed that he's coming to school with the best shoes and the latest phone and things of that nature. And I noticed that when he talks about those things in class, that provides him a distraction because he doesn't understand what's going on. So again, not questioning how you raise your child or what you're doing. I'm just saying maybe if he did not bring those things to school, I can kind of help him a little bit more get on track as much as possible. Her response was, I don't tell you how to teach your class, so don't tell me how to raise my son. So then the pandemic happened, and she told us, this is when, you know how they said at first it was everybody's going to be out for 2 weeks. Nobody said we were going to be out for 2 years. So we went 2 weeks, and she said, okay, we set up Zooms for all of the kids to make sure they had everything. And if you guys remember, during that time, there were a lot of big company chains giving out free Wi-Fi for the children to be able to get on their computer screens and be able to learn. So everybody got on those. We were giving out Chromebooks to the kids. So even if you did not have a laptop, the school was providing you a laptop. So we gave them work, and I said, she said, she went to my principal, said that I was a bad teacher, and said that once the kid gets online, she works from home and she can guarantee that he'll be on there every time. So he had already failed me first quarter. He had already failed me second quarter. We had 2 weeks before third quarter was over. You might as well say he was failing me for third quarter as well. Fourth quarter comes around, that child only gets on the Zoom call twice in a 9-week span from seeing a science teacher every day of the week. He only got on twice. Of course, they passed him to the 8th grade because it became a thing that a lot of the children couldn't get Wi-Fi. It was something new, like there were excuses. So a lot of times when people are blaming the teachers, I want them to realize that administration is getting word from whether it's Catholic school as the Archdiocese, whether it's ACSI for the international Christian schools, for private schools, or whether it's the school board. We are not the ones making those decisions. And that's why you see a lot of people leaving education, because you don't feel like you're really making a difference when your hands are tied. I can't take the kids' phones. I can't give them zeros. And a lot of people want to say, oh, well, we're going to blame it on the technology when this has been an ongoing issue for years.
Wow. I have a question for all three of you. I'm going to start with Melinda. Do you think that teachers should be required to pass the proxy in order to become a teacher? Practice. Thank you.
Let me think. I do know that there has to be some criteria to become certified. However, I don't believe that criteria can really demonstrate how well someone can teach or interact with students. And The praxis is in place. There's different praxis for different subject areas, different content areas. So if I'm teaching biology, yes, I need to know that content before I teach it. So yes, I should pass that. But there have been times where you have educators who are just not good test takers for whatever reason. They know their content, they can teach that class, but they just cannot pass that test. And the test is a very difficult test. I took the core subject test for elementary. I took the administrator test. I took the superintendent test. And so it's not an easy test by any means, but we're talking about equity. We're talking about supporting students, but teachers also need support when it comes to those types of requirements. So there should be some criteria to be certified to teach, yes. But I think just like I know Daria talked about project-based learning in her school, I think there may be some benefit in adjusting how that criteria is assessed or measured. Maybe a teacher can present a project, and show and demonstrate their competency to teach that course. Because you have some educators who walk away because of this test, right? And then they're told that they can teach for a certain amount of years, but then they have to be a long-term sub. And you have really good, dedicated people who want to be in the schools, who have connections with students and families. And for whatever reason, I've seen it happen to a few teachers where they had to leave the field because I can't, I can't make it off a substitute salary. And I've been doing this job for years, but because this test, I can't pass this test, then you're telling me I cannot teach. And so, but I do know private schools have different criteria. Some don't require that certification. But I do think that, to answer your question, I think there should be some requirement in order to be in the classroom in front of students.
I totally agree.
Piggyback off of that, right, when it comes to private schools. So in public school, yes, you have to pass the praxis. I was one of those people who did not. So they only give you 2 years to pass. And then once you pass, they tell you that if you don't pass, they tell you that you can be a long-term sub, because honestly, a lot of the principals want you to stay, right? So it's really not the principal, but of course, if the criteria is you have to pass or you have to be a long-term sub, right? Then that's what it is. So my 3rd year teaching in PG County, I taught as a substitute teacher, but it's not enough money. So what I don't like is the praxis isn't just the one thing that you have to take, right? Then they're like, okay, take this other praxis. Okay, after you take this content, then I want you to continue taking classes in order to prove yourself. But yet these students, let's shy away from the zeros. Let's shy away from the 50s. Let's shy away from grades. Let's just do the standard, and they're not meeting the standard. So it gets to the point where you want these teachers to be of a certain caliber, but you are not holding these students to the same caliber. So meanwhile, we continue to just keep getting in debt because we got to keep going to school in order to make more money, right? Because in public schools, and this is across the county, in public schools, you have a certain amount of years before you stay stagnant in how much you get paid. They're like, oh, you want to make more money? Go back to school. You can get plus 30 and make this much. You want more than that? Go get your master's. You can do a master's, then you'll make a certain amount of money. You want more than that? Go get a master's plus 30. You want more than that? Then become a doctor. You want more than that? This is the highest you can go, and we can't pay you anymore. So that's really what it is at the end of the day. So you're asking me to get more in debt. So that's why I left the county. But then switching over to private school, it's not much better. First of all, the pay is less. The pay is less in private school. So a lot of people would want to stay in public school because they're like, at least I'm getting paid more, which is still not a lot, but you're getting paid a lot more in public school than you are in private school. But one of my biggest reasons for appreciating private schools is the fact that, one, I'm not teaching 150, right? I'm not teaching that many students. 2, I have a little bit more parent engagement than I would beforehand, right? And last but not least, my biggest reason is because private schools can't pay you more, they give you as the teacher more incentives to stay. So for my school in particular, they're paying me significantly less than I would have gotten paid at public school. But they told me if I teach here, your child can go to private school for free. So meanwhile, everybody else is paying $10,000 a year. I don't have to pay that due to my child being able to get a free private school education. So I'll take the hit on the financial side if that means my child can have a private school education. You see what I mean? So I'll take that. Now, granted, do I like the pay? No. But there are a lot of parents that got kids going to this school where they're not getting paid much either, but also paying that $10,000. So it's almost like as a teacher, you have to weigh your options. Like, hey, well, I can go to this place for free because I'm a school teacher. You know, hey, I don't gotta feed myself today because it's lunch at the school. Like you're literally bargaining your life. You know, as a private school teacher. So I mean, it really depends. Do I believe that you should take classes in order to keep up your certification? Yes. Do I believe that I need to continue to get in debt in order to do so? No.
I'm with you. Jaria?
Huh? I'm sorry, I have to put it on mute. I got a lot of things going on in the background, but I do believe that there should be something. In fact, like Amber said, I was starting to go into debt to go back to school because my major was not education. So I had to go back to school. I had to enroll myself into a teacher certification program. And then personal things happened with my brother, and I was unable to finish. So, and my head space was not even in the right space to study for a test. Is it something that I want to go back and do to get the formal certification? Yes, just because also because it's with the unions and everything with the schools, I feel a little bit more protected. If something was to go down, you have those unions to kind of support your back. I also agree that I feel like maybe we could come to some other agreement where experience can trump some of this testing. It's just a lot of testing all the time. Testing. You have to constantly prove that you know what you're teaching. One of the things that I went to Duke Ellington. And I learned that now that Duke Ellington, it's always been a public school, but it has been privately funded, but it has been like kind of returned back to DCPS. They're requiring all those arts teachers to go back and get a certification.
Really?
So I think that's unfair. There are people who have been there for over 30 years. Now you're telling them they got to take a test in order to continue to teach.
Oh, it'd be time to retire.
and for some of them, I do feel like there is this movement to get some of the older teachers to start. It's kind of forcing them to retire. But if it's something that they love to do, and there's no amount of praxis that can tell you, I'm trying to figure out, why does a dance teacher need to take a praxis? Why does the art, you know what I'm saying? Especially the arts teachers. In order for them to continue to be teaching, they have to take the praxis. So in the next 2 years, they have to do that, or they're going to lose their jobs.
Now with private school, we do have something called ACSI certification, but it's like I was telling you guys before, you have to take classes. Now, some of those classes could be offered free. Some of them you have to, but it allows you to keep your certification every 2 to 5 years in order for you to do that. Is it a lot? Yes, I do think some of the stuff is also very unnecessary, but it is enough to say, well, they took the classes. And when you're teaching at a Christian private school anyway, they're more so focused on the Christian part of things rather than your content, to be completely honest. So they'll say you have to take a Bible class, or 2 or 3, or you have to, you have to take a class based on like not really your content, but how you implement the Bible into your content area. So it'll be stuff like that, which I feel like, yes, is it less money? Yes, but the headache of not having to continue to take tests, I'll take that any day. My child gets free private school education. I just got to take a test every couple of years. But as far as the workload is concerned, it's probably the same as probably more.
Okay, so in school, well, when I was in school, we had to take a foreign language. Is it still like that today?
Private schools, yes.
What about public?
Not when I was teaching public school, no, but I was teaching in middle school and public school. So,
So we have a language requirement, but I believe it's because of electives. So I don't know. You have to complete a certain amount of electives in order to graduate. Don't quote me on the number, I forget. But there's a certain amount of electives, and our electives or our inner core subjects are, we have Spanish, we have gym, we have art, we have music, and we now have engineering and architecture, as well as public leadership, because those are the 2 new academies that have been implemented at the school. So you take those courses, they're considered half credits. They're not, but you have to take a certain amount of them. Language, unfortunately, at this point, all of us should be bilingual.
I agree.
I think in order to, if you go elsewhere in the world, the United States is severely lacking. We feel like, oh, everybody should just speak English. Well, they do that, and they speak 8 other languages too. We're so far behind. So competing globally as an American, we are severely lacking a lot of things where it comes to competing on a world stage. Most people speak 2 to 3 different languages. From birth. 2 to 3 languages is a standard in most countries. We're the only singleized country that's like, well, if you don't speak English, then I don't know what to tell you. You just need to learn English. They've learned it. They've learned it now. So we're kind of like lacking. And if you travel, and I feel like a lot of Americans do not travel. When you travel to these other places and just see how effortlessly they switch back and forth from the different languages, because in order to communicate with people, it's just out of a survival thing. You have to be able to communicate. You can't just be like, well, I don't know what you're saying, and that's the end of that. And also with our country being, we have a large minority, the Hispanic community has taken over Blacks as far as being the largest minority in the United States. Black people are no longer the largest minority. The largest minority in the United States are now Hispanics. And what's going to happen? They're going to be able to take your jobs even more. So all that, they're going to take because they can speak 2 different languages. They can speak to the workers and they can speak to you. They can put on their application, I'm bilingual. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You know what? Okay, so that brings me to this question. What about AI? That seems to be taking over everything, because even when you go to the hospitals, you have these little robots. Don't know, robots better not come to my room and give you your medication.
Thank you for asking this question. So AI can be an amazing benefit. Let me first start out by saying that if you use it correctly, it can be an amazing benefit. But I teach kids who will plagiarize a whole paper, put it into AI in order for it to sound different, and then come to class speaking words that they don't know how to spell and pronounce. Okay? So when you have situations like that, right, it's a thing of you have to realize that technology for children who kind of just know that the system is set up for them to pass and not necessarily fail in any aspect, they're going to use whatever they feel like is best for them to. They are looking for a good time for the moment, right? So this is not what is going to carry me through. So people want to blame technology and say, oh, they were sitting in front of computers for 2 years. How are they supposed to learn? But also understand that the world is also introducing them to other things on how to cheat, right? So if it is not happening both in the classroom, whether it's virtual or not, right? So if it's not happening both in the classroom and at home, I tell my parents all the time, y'all have to understand that we are a team effort. I'm not telling you to go doing this. I'm not telling you to go and do this child's algebra because you may not know how to do algebra. But what I am saying is you can say, did you do your homework? Let me see what your homework looks like. Peek in the room to see if they're using MathWave to get the answers and paying that $5.99, $12.99 a month so they don't have to, so they can work out their answers. A lot of the kids in these classes will go to these websites and only get an answer and then get mad when they get a bad grade because the math teacher is asking them how they got to solve this, right? So the parents aren't even just kind of looking over their shoulder to see if things are being done correctly or just honestly. I'm not asking you to do it. I'm just saying make sure they're doing it the right way because when they get to class, the teachers are asking them, did you understand? Are you doing it the right way? Let's do it together. And honestly, there's silence in the classroom. Nobody's asking questions. Nobody's doing this. So how am I even supposed to know as a teacher as to whether you're doing it right? And I will say, I'm only speaking from that portion of things because my kids consider me the cool teacher. So they say a lot of things in my presence because they think that I'm not listening. I've heard students say, I like this teacher as a person. Like, oh, they're really nice, they're really cool, but they're a terrible teacher. Or, oh, did you see that I use ChatGPT, which is an AI situation, to do my project and how well the teacher said I did? Now, if that was my class, I'd be like, but a lot of teachers don't do that. So if we don't have a team effort, like I told you about the student that I had that didn't even get on the virtual learning. If you are in the house as a mom or as a dad, why are you okay with your child on Zoom in the bed? You know, or why are we not making sure they're still getting up? I didn't teach at this school, but one particular school, the students told me they had to get up and be dressed, like they had to have on uniform, and their computers had to be on their screens, had to be showing them. They could not be in the bed. You know, like it was still a standard that you had to get up, you had to get dressed, you had to be in front of the computer, you had to do all of these things. But when you're talking like Jaree and you're saying, even if your child doesn't do those things, I still have to give you a 50. And in my school,
we're failing our children.
It's not saying I have to give 50. It's saying that I have to give them a.
Well, now that I have the control and vote, that a few changes effective immediately.
Right. So if I give them a missing, it will still calculate as a 0, but that means in that 9-week span, if they turn it in, I gotta give a grade for it. You know what I'm saying? It I have to be 100, but I still have to give a grade for it. I even have to turn in my tests and quizzes, like what the kids got. So I have to turn in like how many kids got F's, how many kids got D's, how many kids got C's. And when the quiz that I just told y'all I had gave, I had one particular class that I had out of 19 kids, I might have had 7 failing quizzes. My principal turned around and asked me what was the issue.
They didn't study. That's the issue.
Because it's open note. Like, what do you mean? What was the issue? So when I told her they weren't taking notes because I allowed it to be an open note quiz, and I put the notes on Google Classroom for them, meaning they can always go online and look back at the notes they may not have taken during class for whatever reason that they did not take the notes. So you know what her suggestion was to me? Maybe you should give grades for notes. So now you got to make more work for the teacher. You want me to now grade notes, so them to get a grade for notes, and also for me to check if they wrote notes? We're talking about for children and 15 years old. Now I have to make sure you guys are even writing, and I have to give you a grade for you writing. So please, it's not a technology thing because they're not using it correctly. If they were, it would be great. It would be such a great, because it's supposed to assist and give you new ideas. It is not supposed to do the work for you. But they are taking the opportunity for them to do the work for you. And then if you do bad in it, you have your higher up telling you what you could do in order for this not to happen again.
Okay, so as a parent, a teacher, an administrator, is there anything that we all can do to make a difference? Because kids from other countries can also come over here and take our jobs. What could we do to better the school system? I suggest, but I don't know what I can do. That zero stuff, that needs to come back. If you fail, you fail. It seems like we just pampering these children.
Unfortunately, a zero, that's just, they're not going to budge on that. They're not going to budge on it. The whole grading system, even the school system in itself, it needs to be revamped. We are in a school system that was basically built on when we were in the industrialized revolution, when people were working in the warehouses and the sweatshops and stuff like that. We are still in a system from almost over 100 years ago. We are no longer that. The entire system needs to be revamped. It needs to be equal, equitable. It needs to have more empathy. It needs to, all of those things. And even with us teaching now, they are pushing on us to have more social emotional learning. However, that social emotional learning, really trying to fit it into this old antiquated system, it's like it's fighting it. Because you're telling me to be lax, on one thing, but then you're telling me, oh, you need to have your grades in, and you have a certain, you have a certain standard. It works against it. You're going to either have to have one or you're going to have the other. You really cannot have both. They're clashing in the system. So the entire public education system just needs to be revamped. The way that the Republicans want it, and I hope we get onto that subject, they want to take a lot of things out. And coming from a Christian faith, I understand why some certain things maybe should not, but there's a reason why there is a separation of church and state too. There's a reason why that there has to be a separation, because I tell you this, maybe at one time we were a Christian nation. We were founded that way. But as we have let other religions into play, we're no longer that. We're just a capitalist society. The almighty dollar is the God. And that's the end of it. So I don't know. There's so many layers to all of this. The short answer for parents, as Amber was saying, you need to just kind of follow up. You can't just be this hands-off parent when it comes to your child's education. You have to be involved. You have to talk to the teachers. You have to, even if you don't know the subjects yourself, you have to kind of watch what your kids, you have to trust but verify, because a student or a child will say, oh yeah, I did it, I'm passing, but you have to actually verify that what they're saying is true. You can't just be this hands-off parent and say, okay, I'm just, they're in high school now, I'm just going to let them do what they want to do. That's their life, whatever. And I find that in high school, especially where I am, it's a very hands-off situation where they're treating the kids as if they're already grown. Oh. And then I tell you a story, a quick story. I had a student who recently graduated, and we have this beautiful partnership with UDC where any student that graduates from our high school can go to UDC for free. Not only can they go for free, if you have a parent or a sibling that would like to go back and get some extra classes, they can attend the community college for free. For free. The UDC will allow that. So if your mama wants to go back to school and get some extra courses, if your brother, if you are related to a student that graduated, you can take courses at the community college part of UDC for free. Oh. So, lovely program. This particular student said she was going to another college. Nobody wants to stay in DC. Everyone wants to go to all these other colleges outside of DC. And as teachers, we were encouraging them, hey, save your little money, take these courses. If you want to transfer later, that's fine. But save your money. You don't have to go into college debt. You know what I'm saying? You could actually go to school, get the supports that you need, and don't have to go to college. But anyway, she was like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to such and such school. Fast forward 2 months later, actually a month later, see her a month after she graduated, ask her how she's doing, how she, is she getting ready to pack up to move down to North Carolina? And she says, oh no, I'm going to UDC now. I said, oh, great. Did you get your paperwork started? What paperwork? The man said I could go there for free. Excuse me? The man said at graduation that we could go, and when she's saying the man, the president of UDC said I could go there basically for free. What do I need? I said, so tell me exactly how you were going to go show up to the school. What day were you going to show up? Oh, I was going to show up August 28th. I said, that's the first day of school for DCPS. College starts like the 21st. You have to have orientation. You have to know where your classes are. It's not like you show up to a building. It's one little building. So she's so used to being in a system where she just shows up and somebody hands her a piece of paper and then she goes. But she didn't know that there's an actual process. And I ran into her the other day and I asked her, I said, well, did you get your stuff straightened out? Because I referred her back to the college and career counselor. And the counselor was saying, even though it's for free, you still have to do DC tag because they want that money. The school wants that money, DC tag, and you still have to do the FAFSA thing. It's still a process. It's still a process, but our kids graduate thinking, I don't know what they think. And maybe she is just, the exception. But when I say dead serious, she was like, he told me I could just go there for free.
Yeah. I wish somebody told me I could have went to college for free. I would have jumped on it.
Me too.
But the issue is people are not walking the children through this. They have to stop thinking that you can just use this hands-off approach and tell them things, because they don't know what to do with that information. You know, it's a back to your original question when you were asking what can y'all do as a unit. I would only say that the best thing for you to do is just stay on top of your kid. Stay on top of your kid and be, even if you can't make it to things, be in communication with your teachers. Right. I had a child. I usually don't check my emails on the weekend because they don't pay me for the weekend. But when I pulled up my computer, I had a student, a parent reach out to me. Two parents reached out to me. One said, "My child is sick. They won't be in school all week. Please let me know where I can find their assignments for them not to be behind." That's communication. You didn't have to show up to the school for that. So to get this child's work together in order to make sure the parent is saying, you might be too sick to go to school, but you're not too sick to do this work. So it is a level of accountability, right? I had another student's parent who reached out to me and said, "Hey, my child is going to a funeral this day. Just wanted to give you a heads up that they will not be in school." Totally fine. But on the other hand, you might have students who don't even show up to school. You calling everybody in the book, trying to figure out where this child is, and you get no response. So even though we said earlier, we have to send out all the signals to get them involved, it is ultimately up to them as to whether they're going to be in. I can't come to your house. I can't see you. And speaking of that, a lot of these kids not even putting the right address to even say where they live at. So at the end of the day, you are tying my hands in order to make sure I give you the best effort. Just be a team with me. If you can be a team with me, we can go far. But if you're not holding your student accountable and you just want me to hold them accountable, it becomes a whole nother thing. And it starts when they first start school. My child is 2, starting school. There are things that I am noticing about her that other kids are not doing. I will tell you, the teacher told me, "Oh, she is not, doesn't like to sit down with the other students." Now, I know that may seem really small. Like, oh, she's 2. Of course she doesn't want to sit down with the other students. But what I realized was that when I want her to focus on something, I put her in a high chair where she can't move. Forcing the idea of her paying attention to whatever it is that she needs to do at the time. There are no high chairs in school. So the freedom to be like, oh, I can move. Well, what do you think we can do here? And what do you think you can do at home in order to kind of like, zoom in on her sitting in the chair more? So I said, you know what? It's bad, but I got a table and chair here, just her size. But I said, listen, I'll make all of her meal times, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'll start sitting her at this table. When we're going over her colors, they got 2 colors they learning right now, purple and green. We're going to sit at this table. So, but I'm doing my part as parents. Mm-hmm. Teacher said, hey, she's not doing X, Y, and Z. So how do these 2 things at home and at school? Now, obviously, she's not going to get a pass or fail at 2, but it's all about the fact that the teacher was able to communicate those things. And I say, oh, I could have been who says, I don't have that issue at home. I don't. But that's also because I have not created an environment for it to become an issue either. But when you're willing to look at self and realizing, hey, maybe I've dropped the ball because I've done what's convenient for me. What's convenient might not always be what's best for the kid. And saying that this is not a blaming game, and we're really, really just trying to have a team effort with you, maybe we'll get a little bit further. But as of right now, like Jared said, parents are wounded from their own experiences. You know, you had, when our parents and grandparents were in school, the teacher got an opportunity to lay hands on them, right? And then we had to do away with that because the next generation, the kids who got hit, they had children and said, oh, I would never let a teacher hit my child. So then that was play. And then when we were in school, it became a thing of, if you didn't do what you were supposed to do, it was going to be a 0. Well, I'm not going to let nobody make my child feel stupid. So now we're away from the 0s, and now we're at the 50s. And now it's, let's not leave no child behind. Let's not. And then they said, well, let's go away with that. Now let's not give them 0s. Let's go away with grades. Now let's just focus on the standard. It has continued to cater to a more gentle way of society with whoever had those issues. They made big of a fuss in order for things not to be that way anymore. So the teachers are not the ones who can change the rules. The rules have to be changed by these board members from the Department of Education. And unfortunately, none of us on this call make those calls. We just go to work. Okay, Vet has a question.
Sure.
Oh, she don't have a question.
Okay. So I have a question regarding what you just said about Department of Education. Then what are we going to do? Because the political appointees and all of them, they have been trying to do away with Department of Education for a while now. So if Congress have their way and Department of Education is gone, who then will make the decision for the school? Is it the state?
Fortunately, it would be the state. And honestly, if we're going to be 100% honest, America is more about control than anything. Why not keep these children dumb? Let's be honest here. Like, if I can tell you that I'll at least give you a certain amount of money to work at a fast food place, and because you are working in a fast cash society, and this is how these children operate, that's good enough for them. That's good enough for them. But you have these and they're starting with Gen A, right? They're starting with Gen Alpha, because Gen Z, they're coming out of high school. They're coming out of middle school. And I've got kids who don't look like us, who are telling me they have no desire to go to college. They have no desire to do anything. And I teach mostly kids who don't look like us. So even that stigma to say it's the Black and Hispanic kids that's doing poorly, no, it's not.
To the trade school. I remember in school we had
trade schools.
What was that high school cost?
Trade
I don't know.
Went back.
But see, you did hair, you learned how to do nails, you learned how to fix cars. Yeah, carpentry.
They don't have that. They don't have that in schools anymore. Those things have been defunded, and a lot of these trade schools have went into bankruptcy. They can't stay open. So
yeah, it's very few of them. I think Ballou Stay is another academy that is the night school or the trade school of Ballou. And then they also have Phelps. Phelps is still kind of like the trade. So in DC, it's kind of like certain schools have been designated for certain things. So if you want to go more into the trade, you need to go to Phelps or you need to go to Ballou Stay. If you want to do more engineering, you need to go to McKinley. If you want to be in the arts, you go to Duke Ellington. So you see how Each school has been designated. If you are collegiate bound, Banneker. You know what I'm saying? You have schools that are kind of like designated for certain things. Now, can you have a variety of those things throughout all of the schools? You should be able to do. Yeah, I think that should be. I mean, I think Anacostia at one time had the trades there. They, like Amber said, were defunded and said, we're going to now go into a new direction, and we're going to do engineering and architecture as one of our academies and public leadership as another academy. So it's also a money thing. Let's be clear. It comes down to money. Money. Students equate to money. If you don't have a lot of students, you don't have a lot of money for your school to funding it. Somebody got to get paid. Nobody is doing any of this thing for free.
But who determines how much each school gets as it relates to funding?
So again, that goes through county, that goes through state. Everyone is different. I know we just recently got money across the district was slashed. We already didn't have any money, and they slashed even more money based on we don't have as many kids attending our school. Your money comes from how many kids are enrolled. Unfortunately, a lot of public schools like mine, I feel at times Anacostia is almost like a private school, because I think to date, maybe have 300 some students officially enrolled and registered. 300 for the entire school.
Oh.
Exactly.
9 through 12?
Exactly. Through 9 through 12, we have about 300 students.
For me, it's even crazier. My school goes from K2 to the 12th grade. We don't have more than 500 kids. We're talking about the entire education from the moment they get into school to the moment they graduate and go to college. We have about maybe a little less than 500 kids. But I also wanted to bring y'all to Majoni had a question she wrote in the chat.
Okay.
She put, as an educator, what role do you take when a parent is just absent or simply does not care about a child's learning? So I will say, for me, there's nothing that I can do. Like I said, it has to be a team effort. If you are not showing up, trust and believe your child knows that. So if your child knows that you don't care, if your child knows that you are not showing up, my first day of school, again, teaching private school to a child who do not look like me, I was told that I am not afraid of my mom or my dad.
A child told you that?
Yeah. I'm not afraid of my mom or my dad. So the idea of them doing work is going to be solely based on whether they choose to do work or not. We are now into our 5th week of school. I haven't received the email. I haven't received a text. I haven't received in-person meeting, nothing. Now, this child is not failing, right? But they also don't have like A's and B's. So I want to be clear on that as well. But they made it very clear, because you know how sometimes a lot of teachers like to set the tone, like, I'll call your parent, I'll email your parent. These children are now letting you know they do not care. They're letting you know that their parents also do not care. So what am I supposed to do in that aspect? I've literally had principals in the past tell me you cannot save everybody.
Well,
you
that's
have
true.
Who is willing to be saved, because you cannot save everybody. And it's an unfortunate thing. I've had, and when I was working in PG County, I have my first set of kids that just graduated from high school. I am so over the moon that they graduated. They already had a plan, but these were my honors kids. They already had a plan what they were going to do. Their parents are so involved. It is crazy. This is public school. My second year, I have another set of kids, 3 kids in particular. The minute they graduated middle school, they were supposed to go to Roosevelt public school for high school. The girl never made it out of 9th grade. She dropped out of school and she got pregnant. And she had already stayed behind twice before. So we're talking about her already being, you know, we're talking about pushing. When I found out that she was pushing 17, no, she was 17. She never made it out of the 9th grade. She just stopped going to school.
But isn't there a law about that?
Yes, but this is what I'm saying. Even though I did not get a chance to keep up with her, because obviously once you graduate the school, you graduate, you know? But the parents are not even sending their kids, they're signing them up. They're signing them up to make sure they don't go to jail, right? But they're not pushing them to go to school. So now 2 out of the 3 girls are now not going to school, now have children of their own. You know, I can't do anything about that once you leave. I can't do anything about that if you're there. I had a 6th grader. Y'all will not believe. I had a 6th grader in my last year teaching in public school. I had a 6th grader who did not come to school. He would come sometimes and then he would be gone. Now, after 3 days of you not being there, you're supposed to call to figure out, like, is the child sick or something? Did you move them to a school? Did you move because you can't go to the school anymore? Like, what's really going on here? I did not, I will be honest, I did not wait the 3 days. I probably waited, not even going to lie, about a month, because the child would like miss a week of school and then come for like 3 days and then be gone again. So by the time it would even come to mind, the child would come back to school. And when you're dealing with 150 kids, you're not always like, you know, paying attention to that one kid. But it got to a point where I didn't see this kid for like 2 weeks. And I finally reached out to both of his parents, and I'm like, hey, you know, just want to ask, like, what's going on with so-and-so? I can't remember the child's name. And they said, no, he goes to school. I said, ma'am, I have not seen your son in 2 weeks. Long story short, this child was getting up every morning to put on their school clothes and making it seem like they were waiting for the buses. Their parents went to work. And then when their parents drove off, they would get back in the bed. When you're dealing with a system that you're hoping the kids get picked up on a school bus, and that's a whole nother issue, because now people ain't even trying to drive these school buses because these kids are acting a type of way on a school bus. So, and then you got school buses who are literally driving past kids because they don't feel like dealing with them. So yes, it's that bad. So it's really at a place where it's like, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do at this point? When your child is slick enough to get up and get dressed and then get back in the bed. And then that lets me know that you're not checking any type of work that's online. You're seeing these zeros, you're seeing these incompletes, you're seeing these missing assignments, or are you not? But you're asking me where your child is, or telling me your child is coming to school. They are clever.
Yep.
Yeah, clearly.
Yep.
They are getting dressed and not coming to school. Or I got students now, who don't look like us, who when they find out they're having a test or quiz, they don't come to school.
Oh.
Does that mean as a teacher, you have to do a makeup or schedule for another day?
Yeah, you have to do a makeup, but see, this is the thing. You can do a makeup all day. Now, they don't want a teacher like me, but if you do a makeup, you have to remember that means everybody else in the class already did it. So what happens? I can then ask what was on there so I can pass. So I'm not going to come to school. But when you come across a teacher like me, who is the cool teacher, yes, but I make 3 different versions of my test.
Oh, I would not like you.
And because humans in general are creatures of habit. I know that when you come into a classroom, wherever you felt like this was your seat, you're going to sit in that same seat every time. So I memorize where they're going to sit. And then I make sure the next two people don't have the same quiz or test that you have.
Okay.
So if you're going to struggle, y'all going to struggle together because y'all are not going to have the same things on your quizzes. I also differentiate. I have 2 biology classes, so they learn the same thing. So I make 6 different tests for them to make sure that the other class, I have some classes on Mondays and I have some classes on Tuesdays. So one class I see Monday and Wednesday, the other class I see Tuesday and Thursday because they don't consider science or core subject at the school. So I see them every other day. But I make sure that they cannot speak to each other about what the quiz is going to be about. Also, children tell on themselves. I made the first quiz online, right? I made the quiz online. I told them that they were having a quiz this week. They were like, is it going to be online? Now it's not going to be online because why you asking me that? Right?
They think they're smarter than you.
Right, because they think they're going to outsmart me. And I tell them all the time, like, you tell on yourself. But so now it's not going to be online. And if you want to say that I'm the hard teacher, that I'm doing too much, I can do too much. I tell them all the time, I am going to be a nice teacher to you. I will be the cool teacher to you, but I am very petty. So the moment I find out that you're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing, I'm going to one up every time. Because you're not going to beat me. I mean,
so
it's funny that you say that because that's like one of my favorite sayings. I was like, I know I'm old, but I'm not old enough not to be petty. I said, oh, I can. And I said, I just think of ways how to do. I said, I have nothing else to do. It's part of my job. So I have no other way but to get. And a lot of times the students, they think that they're giving over on you. And I said, you do understand that we were once young too, so we know your ways, but we even know it better. We know it even better. I said, so if you're going to lie to me, make sure that it's a good lie. Because just know I am going to trust you, but I am going to verify. So we have a system where the kids like to come and sometimes they just want to do independent work. Why are you doing it? We're, like you said, we're in week 5. Why is anybody doing independent work in week 5? You really are still getting to know whatever. Why are teachers allowing students to do anything independently by themselves and send them alone to do their work in the library? I said, I'm not babysitting them because I'm busy testing kids and I have other things that I have to do that are administrative that I'm getting ready for. So I can't babysit them and make sure that they're doing their work. However, I can call to make sure that you got teacher permission to come down there, because they try to sometimes, and it's so crazy to me, they try to go into like some of the back rooms and they get on the floor and hide under the desk. So you can't see them, but they're so stupid. They leave the phone is charging in the corner, so you know somebody is there because you can see the phone charging or the phone, but they hiding under the desk. So I have to go and peek under the desk and go, please get up and get out because I just don't have time for this. But
are sending them out due to them not wanting to be bothered. The school that I teach at, right? You think it's so fancy because you're paying $10,000 to $12,000 a year for your child to go to school. Told me that they have a math teacher that just gives them work and say, just come to me when you have an issue, because they don't feel like being bothered. So
the packets, the kids are getting packets. We also have a shortage of teachers. So just recently, at the end of the school year, our principal left to be the principal at Ballou. The intern principal that was at Ballou is now our principal at Anacostia. So they swapped. So we also have a swap in administrators. It's a lot going on, but we still have a number of positions. We have a number of positions still open. So until those people are onboarded, you have substitutes that are in the classes. They're giving the kids packets. They don't consider substitutes real teachers.
Yep.
So if a substitute comes to class they do not consider them a teacher. Therefore, my teacher is out. I can do what I want to do. I can walk the halls. I can go wherever I want, whatever, because we're not doing anything. That's actually untrue. You do have work that you need to do. You are choosing not to do it because you don't consider that whatever the substitute is giving you as real work. They just don't consider. They don't consider it real work because they don't consider the substitute as being a teacher.
That's right.
They don't consider them.
Can't even be a substitute without having some form of education in whatever field. Like, so they're not putting an in-person in the classroom.
And it's crazy because a lot of our substitutes are like retired college professors, doctors. I mean, they've been in the profession for more than 30 plus years experience. But at the same time, the kids, and I don't know if it's just my students or, but they don't like older people. I no, if you're old, they do not like old. It is very, and I'm thinking, I'm like, how would you want someone to treat your grandma or your great grandma? I don't like that, B. Like, you can treat her whatever I want, so there's no hierarchy of respect, or, you just don't speak to certain people a certain way. You don't treat people a certain way. They talk to everyone everyone is on the same level. We're all on the same level. And I have to quick to put, no, we're not even in the same stratosphere, but I'm gonna let you have it. As I told a student before, if you get in a fight and you hit me, I'm going down. I'm gonna let you have it. So for the rest of my years, DCPS can pay me, and I'm going to say emotional distress that I cannot go back to work.
Every time, it's really that bad, and it does not change in private school. Like, it might not be any fights and things that are going on because they're stricter when it comes to that behavior, but ultimately they still just want these kids to pass, and they're still going to question the teacher every time it seems like as a whole we are not doing a good job, because they have to report those things.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting too. It's always this almost kind of like tunnel vision. All they're concerned about is the promotion rate. Are the kids promoting from the 9th to the 10th, to the 10th to the 11th, to the 11th to the 12th? Are they promoting themselves? That's all that they care about. That's the thing that I get from admin. And then they come up with these solutions of, okay, the kids are testing low. We're going to put some things into place. Like the newest thing is everyone has to write. So, our reading and our writing scores are low. So no matter what class you're in, you got to write something. It doesn't matter. If you're in art class, you got to write something. In music class, you got to write. Everybody has to write. But what they're not taking in consideration is our kids don't know how to write because they don't know how to read. How are you going to put one thing in front of the other? So you can tell them.
That's the school's fault. I mean,
but by the time they get to high school, whose fault? It's not the high school teacher's fault. They inherited from the middle school. The middle school people inherited it from the elementary. I mean, I have even had to.
You got to remember, they're telling us too many people can't fail. So you start as a teacher, and you start to juggle like who's the worst of the worst that you gotta pay.
But there's definitely a gap in our students' learning. Everyone, like you said, this is before pandemic. When I am sitting there teaching kids how to color in the lines and cut on the line, that they don't know how to use a pair of scissors and cut straight. There are some fundamental things that was not taught to them when they were in preschool, in kindergarten, and nobody ever taught them. And now you're getting rid of some of the most fundamental things like cursive. I'm gonna tell you, I was triggered not too long ago when a student put an X for their signature.
The letter X?
So the letter, like they used to do back in slavery time when they couldn't write, they put an X. I was triggered. We're in 2023, and you put an X as your signature.
Mom,
An X. It was triggering. It was very triggering to see that the student didn't know how to do it. They've taken out signature, learning how to do cursive. They've taken out how to read. How it's not important to learn how to do an analog clock, like to read a clock. Nobody knows what time it is unless they have a phone on it.
But what's your
This
question?
is mind blowing. You had a question, Vet? If you do, you on mute. Okay, is Mimi still? Is Melinda still on?
Had to get off. There go back.
Okay, I got it. I wanted to go back to what y'all was saying because I'm a little confused when y'all was talking about how you all have standards that the kids have to pass. The kids. You all have to pass the kids, or you all have to report to the people, whatever. So I'm wondering, because I'm really concerned about this school that my son used to go to, because if he failed the whole school year, now one time did you send me a letter for summer school? Now one time did you send me a letter about anything? But he passed to the 6th grade. You asked me, oh yeah, is he coming back? Are you gonna put him in the summer program? I said no. I said no because I really wanted it to see what was their answers. No, I didn't get no. Oh yeah, Devontae should come and do this because such and such. He needs more of this. He needs more of that. Nothing. So then, as you are talking, I'm like, so is this how school you know what I'm saying? Like, is this really how it is? Are we passing these kids just to pass them? Are we passing these kids just to get them out their face? Okay, yes. Now I know my son is a problem child. That I do know. But at the same time, that it doesn't matter to me because every time you called me, the work got done. If he was missing stuff, I made sure that he made it up. I made sure that he got it done. It wasn't an issue of you contacting me about behavior or schoolwork or anything.
Well,
every time report card, I have not seen the letter C, a B, or an A the whole school year. And I didn't get a phone call about a letter about summer school. I didn't get nothing about your son is going to be retained. Nothing. And I really want to go up to the school and act like now that you want to talking about this, it really it really bothered me a little bit because I just feel like if he didn't, you told me he don't do nothing all school year. He didn't do anything. He make fun, like he make jokes in the class. Yeah, he did work here and there, but it wasn't enough. So to me, that's nothing. How is he in the 6th grade?
Let me answer. So the issue is this: if the teacher starts to feel defeated because they can put in the grades that he got, right? The grades that he deserved. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, it's not us who make the decision whether you have. So the teacher did their job to an extent by at least giving him the grades he deserved. But we don't make the decisions on who passes.
So, okay, so it's no, because I was told if he get one more failing, now this is in the 2nd quarter. If he get one more failing grade, he was going to be retained. Oh, for me, okay, cool. The boy don't want to go. The boy don't want to do work. The boy don't want to. Let him stay back. I'm cool with that, because like Jareen was saying earlier, how all y'all was saying earlier how these kids like it's no type of punishment for nothing. So if you stay back, for me, you're gonna stay back. And you're gonna learn the hard way in life, and you're gonna learn if you can't get into one of these great schools that y'all was saying, oh well. You like, for me, like that was nothing. Like, I get it. You got I mean, I get what y'all was saying, but it just don't make sense to me.
But that's why I said, unfortunately, people are not trying to make it be a team effort, because you got parents like you who are willing to say, like, listen, if you're telling me that things need to get done, I'm going to make sure that things need to get done. Exactly. But if you got teachers who are also not communicating that your child is not doing something, there is no way for you to know, except if they have like online grading. So I know for my school, we have online grading where the parents get a username and a password, and they're able to go online themselves and see what their child is missing.
Now, I did all that. I had all that. I saw every missing assignment. I called the teacher. I said, I begged the teachers, can y'all please just put it back up on Google Classroom so he can just do it? And I didn't know half of the work. I don't remember half of that stuff. What I was doing for myself, I was on YouTube. I was reaching out to my coworker. He was good at math. I was sending him work to help me out. Like, I was doing everything in my power to help. But it's like,
But unfortunately, if it feels like a failing system, like I said, even because your child is a behavior child, you will have a teacher that says, listen, as long as he ain't in my class next year, and the issue continues. So the next teacher is trying to figure out why we're having such a problem. Who passed you? Who's okay?
And they keep doing it. They keep doing it until they get to the 12th grade, and then you learn your child don't know 1 + 1. No? You know what I'm saying? And they just keep going. And I as a teacher will say, get your child tested. Just they're not gonna want, but just so you have a gauge, or pay attention to the test. So right now, and I think this is Maryland and DC, at the beginning of the year, they have 3 tests that they had to do. They had to do a reading inventory, they had to do a map testing, and they had to do a social studies. All 3 of those tests within the last maybe 2 weeks have been administered. Those grades or those scores, pay attention. Look at how your child is competing with other students on their grade level. Because I'm going to tell you, I've been looking, and when I say it is heartbreaking to see 11th and 12th graders reading at a 400. Now they thinking, 400, that's not bad. No, boo-boo. If you are in the 9th grade, you should be getting no less than a 1050. If you are in the 10th grade, you should be getting no less than a 1080. If you are in the 11th grade, you should have 1185 or higher. And so as well as the 12th graders. You reading on a 400, you're not even on a 2nd grade level. And it can't, I was rushing, I was doing that. But the test is very AI, that it will change the question based on how you answer it. And it only gives you questions. Nobody in the room has the same questions. Nobody has the same questions. It's very comprehensive that way. So as a parent, look at those scores. Look at the PARCC scores. Look where your child is competing against everyone else. And then, if you can, find, and there's plenty of free programs, tutoring. Don't, you saying, they need to be a child and they need to have their summers off too. Find them a camp. Get that extra. And sometimes it may be that the child is bored because they already know the information. And they're not being challenged enough. So you have to have some type of gauge. Either you already know this information, you bored and you feel insulted because they're giving this information to you again, or you really don't know it. But you need to know where they're testing out to.
And that you said that I put them in he's at a new school now, which is like a more interracial school. He's at a new school now, and he took all them tests that you named, the map and all that. He did that already, and I even had a conversation before the school started. Had a conversation with the principal and his teachers, like one-on-one talk, told him my concerns, the reasons for me leaving the other school, and what my goal and stuff like that for my son. And my son passed, the test. Everything they give me, I have not had not one bad call since the 5 weeks the school has been started. I have not got nothing bad. Every time that man texts me, oh, your son is doing great, because I want the feedback, because I'm trying to figure out what was the distance.
And it was probably the environment. It was the environment that
I feel like they just didn't like my son. And
unfortunately, let me tell you something. And that I'm gonna tell you, it's not. Is it right? Is it right? No, it's not.
No, right.
Teachers have biases, and teachers have feelings, and teachers get in their feelings, and teachers will say, "Hey, it ain't gonna be my problem. Let me just go ahead and do this. Let me just They do. I mean, if you think about a teacher's day, and as Amber was saying, even though she's in a private school setting now, you have so many parents that you are constantly having to, now take it to a public school level when you have so many. What time of night? You got your own family and your own babies that you got to do. You come home and do homework and stuff with. You only have a certain amount of times, and unfortunately, kids slip through the cracks. But going back to what Amber said, it has to be a team effort, because a lot of times the kids, they come to school, we build them up, and then they go back home and they get torn back down.
Yeah.
Then they come back to school, they get built up, and then they go back home, and sometimes they get torn down. And then we're hoping that there's this self-ignite button that they're going to want to do it for themselves eventually, that maybe something will ignite in them and say, no matter what, if my mother no matter what, I'm going to want to do this for myself.
Right.
That's going to ignite in them. But is he in middle school now, or is he in what grade?
6th grade. Yes,
he's in 6th grade. So he's just starting middle school, right? Yeah. He's just starting. I would say between now until he gets out, just how hard you doing it now?
You got
You got to put the foot down on. You got to keep full throttle, because at this point. From this point on, they are taking in every single thing. Yeah. And you have to be in those. You have to be in the teacher spaces. You have to. I'm not saying kiss butt, but you got a little gift card. Don't hurt no you want the teacher to be just as invested in your child as you are invested in them. And so unfortunately, it's one of these things. Yeah. You gotta, if the parents that are not caring, the teachers say, then they don't care what caring. Now on my end,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I wasn't one of them parents. Like, I was always at the school. They called me every day. I told her they called me every day.
And you know what?
It wasn't like I wasn't involved, or
and I'm gonna tell you too. And I know you have your own jobs, but sometimes hop up on school and then volunteer. You want to see some behavior change? Say don't even tell them that you're gonna show up at the school one day just to volunteer to help out as like a teacher.
I did that all the time. Whole entire school years.
In the school, and say, I'm gonna take a day off and I'm gonna go up to the school, because when they see you, I'm telling you, you would be very interested. I mean, people get because they become like our children too. We can't put our hands on them. We can't do, we only can do certain. This has to be a tag team effort. It has to be a tag. I used to kid around with some of my students. I said, I'm going to make your mama my best friend. We're going to go out to the club. We're going to smoke hookah together. And they said, Miss Carter. I say, yeah. I said, so when you act up, she gonna really believe me. She ain't gonna believe you. Right. I'm trying to make your mama and your grandmama best friend. We're gonna be best friends. We're gonna be besties. I say, keep it up.
Don't even
Keep
tell
it up.
sometimes don't even tell the teacher you coming. Tell the principal, make sure it's possible, and
And they
show.
will make room for you. Volunteer in the office. I mean, we have so many things. It's an all hands on deck type of thing at our school. They're trying something new this year where they're not taking the cell phones away from the students. I don't really know how I feel about that. But the incentive is you show up to school on time, you get to keep your phone. However, the classroom management of the teacher, of how she manages them not being on the phone, or he manages how they're not to be on the phone, it still has to be dealt with. So, I don't personally, as a teacher, I don't have to say, get off your phone now. That should be as soon as you enter the classroom, keep it in your pocket. I don't need to see it. You know what I'm saying? You can have your phone, whatever, but don't disrespect me. I'm teaching and you on TikTok. That doesn't make any sense. There's a time and a place for everything. But as a parent, just how you were saying that you have to keep that up, especially for our Black boys. Our Black boys are put in a box. Okay. They are always already looked at as being the problem children, not doing this, not doing that, whatever. You have to make sure that you change the narrative of your child. You have to be responsible for that. And if you find that your child is not doing what they're supposed to do and they're not being productive, move them. Like you said, you took them out of that school because you felt like that there was the teachers did not, and you know your intuition. They probably did not.
Yeah.
They probably did not. But once you changed his environment, you saw a different change in him. Simple.
And this is the most crucial time because he is still at an age that things are very impressionable. So a lot of things can change very quickly just because his environment has changed.
And you don't want him to get in that environment where the kids are like, oh, it's not important to go to school, or it's not, sometimes they want to fit in. And I've even seen kids that want to dumb down themselves.
Yep.
Just to fit in. Just to have a friend, because they don't want to be alone. They want to have friends.
Bullied. I watch children be like bullied, not even physically, right? Like I've seen them like verbally these I'm talking about from the school that I'm at now. I have seen high school kids get verbally bullied by people, and these children don't say anything because they want friends. And I've literally have had to tell two students in front of these children, they are not your friend. And you are a fool if you continue to allow these people to treat you this way. They are not your friend. Y'all are not cool. You need to stick to whatever it is that you need to do. And you need to make, and even with these parents, at least Vet is a type of parent who her child is also just enough fearful, who that if I don't do my work, you call
Mama's going to show up.
And my mother's going to show up. That's what that's what they need. I got, that's really what they need. They need teachers who are going to tell them the truth, and they need parents who are going to be foot on neck about their behavior and about their schoolwork.
But you did very good there as far as transferring him to another school. I know I was the type of parents, the principal, the teacher, nor my students knew when I was coming up to the school. And I was up there so much, they just simply expected me. Whenever. But I did have one teacher that did not like my son. So long story short, there was a lot of complaints. I wasn't having it, and I got her fired.
I mean,
You do what you gotta do. I had all my proof.
yeah, I feel like the teachers also have to, you got teachers like that, but as I tell my students, when they say, oh, I think you're mad today, I said, I will never allow a child to take out of character. So this is what we're going to do. Since you all don't want to do what you want to do, you don't want to do what I'm asking you to do, I'm going to do what I want to do. You know, and if you want to do the work, you do the work, and if you don't want to do the work, you don't want to do the work. I'm not going to stress myself out about it. I have a student who, I'm going to be honest, the child is annoying every day, but I recognize that I have to separate this child's behavior from this child academically. You see what I'm saying? And I think that's where your teachers have to be adults about the situation. Will you have problem students? Yes. But you cannot give grades for behavior. You have to give grades for academics.
So how do you handle if a child is in elementary?
Okay, well,
yeah.
I think they used to have, did they take it out? It used to be one for behavior at one time.
Oh,
It was factored in there. At some point it was somehow factored in there, I thought. But elementary maybe.
grade, but for elementary school, and we're talking about lower elementary, not upper elementary.
Mm.
For elementary, they will do things like, I will say my kid is in lower elementary. Every day I get I get a daily report about how her day went. And it's either a very good, a good, or a needs improvement. Now, Honora bit her teacher on the first day. Okay. now now I'm getting messages saying she's scratching people. And last Friday, she got mad and she pushed one of the other kids and she slapped the child. Now she got a needs improvement that day. Right? But that lets me know as the parent, all right, now we're gonna have to stop it or slap it because you can't be going around slapping people's kids. Right. So but that's something that I would know. Then you have stuff like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, that you can start off with an orange, that means you did good. And then if you get down to a yellow, that means, you might have been swaying left and right. If you get a red, you're done. But it's not an actual grade. It's just telling you where you might have been for the day. And then your parents are aware, and then your parents can do what they need to necessarily do. So I will speak for even myself having a lower elementary school child. Last week, I was told twice in 1 week that she been having and she needs to have improvement. Honora is severely attached to her teacher. It's unhealthy how attached she is, to the point where no one else can help with Honora, because if it's not this lady, she ain't doing nothing that she's supposed to do. Now, I don't have that issue at home, but I realize I don't have that issue at home because Honora doesn't have things that she has to do at home. She just gets to do whatever she chooses to do once she's here. And like I said, with the high chair, I just put her in the chair to eat. But I noticed this weekend, when I had to put her in the chair, when I had to take out her hair, when I had to, because school pictures this week, help us Jesus, but when I had to take out her hair, when I made her walk up and down the stairs, when I told her she had to get in the bathtub, when there were things that she had to do, guess what I noticed? The tantrums. Something that I've never noticed before. And so I recognized that I now have to set an environment that she doesn't get a chance to do what she wants to do. Because it's turning into school that when she doesn't get a chance to do what she wants to do, we are falling out. We are kicking and screaming. We are scratching kids, So, speaking of, so with that being said, I don't have a choice but as a parent and a teacher to do what I'm supposed to do in order to make sure this child doesn't have any issues at school.
Amber, are you still talking?
No.
Oh, okay. Hi, Kyra.
Oh.
So, okay, I have a question. What is the responsibility of a substitute teacher?
As
Either
a
one of y'all can answer that question.
as a substitute, and we gotta, but as a substitute, because we both were substitutes, but as a substitute, you have to give the children work. You have to teach the class. You have
Do
to
the teacher lead the works for the substitute teacher?
not if you are a long-term substitute. If you are a long-term substitute, you operate as the teacher because you have made a contractual commitment that you will be there for the school year. So you are the active teacher in that classroom. Now, if you are just a regular substitute, the teachers are supposed to lead the work, and then the teachers grade the stuff when they get back. So it's still, all you're doing is administering. So it's still the teacher's job to do all the work. But that's because you're coming in for the week that they're not there or things of that nature. If you are a long-term sub, you have every responsibility that a full-time teacher has because you made that commitment to be the only teacher in the classroom.
And just to piggyback, some of them think they just come in there to babysit, take the attendance, whether the kids do the work or not. There's a certain expectations. Like my mom is a sub, and she takes her sub teaching very seriously, to the extent that she actually tries to teach the subject or whatever. But I think it's supposed to be some work that is left from a teacher that they're supposed to enforce. So there should be something that should be left there for the teacher. It's supposed to be completed by the day, have something on there. The sub is just going pretty much through the options of like taking the attendance, making sure that they gave out the work that was supposed to be given out, whether the kids do it or not. They make a notation, who did it, who did not, who turned it in, who did not. And that's the end of it. That's how it's very cut and dry. They can't do too much. I mean, I really feel bad for them because a lot of our students just do not consider them teachers. And so they will walk out of a class, oh, I have a sub. I don't have class. There's no teacher. That's the actual response. There's no teacher in there today. Is there a sub? Oh, yeah, but that's not a teacher. No one would leave them unattended to. You have a sub in your class. Oh, well, I don't want to stay in there. Can I come in here? No. And then the sub also has a responsibility to make sure that the students that are on the roster match the students that are in the classroom, because there will be students that will have their girlfriends, their boyfriends, their best friends in the class with them, thinking it's a free period.
Okay, so
there is some accountability with a substitute that they need to make sure. Even kids saying, oh, I have a sub, they wrote me a pass to be in here. You don't really have the authority as a sub to be. Why are you letting the child out of your sight in a class?
Yeah.
So, you have to have some accountability on both ends.
Okay, we're about to wrap this up, but I do have one more question. I'm Marilyn. I know you have subs. Have you ever had issues with students when you substitute them as a teacher? Marilyn, are you on mute? Yeah, she on mute. Marilyn. Okay. I'm sorry, Jerry, I didn't hear you because you were saying something. You on mute too.
She needs to hit the little microphone.
Oh, she might not know how to do that. Do you see a microphone?
If she's on her phone, it's towards the bottom, and it's the menu on the bottom, and just hit the little thing that looks like a microphone. Click it. Make sure it doesn't have an X through it.
And you know what? I think this was a very good discussion. Some people have reached out and said that we need to do a part 2 of this, which I also think is a good idea, but we just have to schedule a date and call it part 2. So I would just have to get together with you all and to see what date is best for you. I'm pretty flexible, but I definitely learned a lot myself. I hope someone has some good takeaways from this and what they can do to help their children even more. So with closing, Jerry and Amber, do you have anything else you need to add before we do part 2?
I would just say, closing to, you are your best advocate. You are your child's best advocate, because unfortunately, the people who make decisions don't have phone numbers that you can contact. They are not going to be people that you see in the everyday classrooms or in the everyday buildings. And because of that, though you do have some bad apples, right? You do have a lot of good gems of teachers in the classroom. But unfortunately, you both have to care enough about the child, see that child succeed, because we don't make the rules. And the moment you get relaxed, the child is going to slip through the cracks. And that's the honest truth. And not to put it just on the parent. I'm saying it's the parent, it's the student, it's the teacher. Those three have to be willing to do the work, because nobody is fighting for you. You have to want to do it yourself.
Yeah,
Just to piggyback on Amber, it is definitely a team effort between the educator, the parent, and the student. And once you get that good rhythm going, no matter how young the student is, everyone has to take accountability. Their accountability cannot just rely heavily on just the teachers. I think there's a lot of heavy teacher burnout because teachers are now being the parents and the teachers. You can't do both. You can't do both. You will seriously burn yourself out. That's why you're seeing a lot of teachers leaving the profession, because they're now being the teacher, the social worker, the psychologist, psychiatrist. There is so many roles that they're doing, and everyone is pointing the finger at them, but nobody else is taking the accountability. So once a student, no matter how young they are, and the parent as well as the teacher come to agreement that, you know, these are things that are happening, this is what needs to be done, and come on some one accord, things will definitely move in their favor. But nobody can just have a hands-off mentality and think that by osmosis that the child is going to do great. That it just doesn't work that way.
That's absolutely true. But thank you all for joining. Jerry and Amber, hang on for a second, but this does conclude Faithfully Committed Podcast as it relates to the school system. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Jerry, I don't know how to hit, what I need to hit the logo.
Leave.
It looks totally different from usual. So I just hit the X button.
maybe try that.
Lord, I hope I don't
Stop,
lose you.
stop, hit the record button to stop it.